safe social distance, I just took off my mask. Does anyone have an objection to that if I stand here without a mask? If you do, I respect that, and I'll put it right back on.
Would you like one? I got an extra.
I have a mask. I just took it off.
Oh,
Okay. All right. Yes. Come on in and roll. I want to thank everyone for being here this afternoon, here at our Hazleton Center. And let me just begin by saying that these very difficult and challenging times that we are now experiencing, both in our region, across the country, across the world really, is something that I think an educational institution, particularly a community college, which is the largest diverse institution in Luzerne County, one of the leaders in Pennsylvania, has really, I think, an inherent obligation to have an open forum, talk about those issues that, unfortunately, in our history of our nation have been left really dormant and not engaged enough to make our lives so that we have respect and dignity, that we can certainly feel comfortable in having an open discussion. And that's really what we want to achieve today, is what we're calling President's Roundtable. A couple of weeks ago, I delivered a message to our college community on diversity and inclusion. And I made what I consider to be my feeble attempt to communicate how much college, how it has been embedded as a very diverse institution. But what I said was, even though we have made progress, we can never, ever be satisfied. We have a long road to travel. And our goal is really, very idealistically, to make sure that everyone feels comfortable in the environment, in the education, and all that we provide for our students, most importantly, and certainly for our faculty and our staff. So this afternoon, the way I would like to begin, and as I mentioned, this is the first in a series, I might add. This is not a situation where we're walking in here today, and we're not going to continue the dialogue that we feel is so important. Next Thursday at 2 o'clock, we're going to be at our Wilkes-Barre Center, and we're going to continue this roundtable to have some discussions, and we're going to continue that series moving forward at both our main campus and in some of our other centers. And if I may, I'm going to begin with, and I mean this very respectfully to our community members who joined us, but my focus has always been on acknowledging and having our students introduce themselves. So we're going to start with the students. I'm going to ask you if you would introduce yourself, and I would also ask you that if you have anything that you would like to offer at the very beginning of this discussion, in terms of an introduction. Why you're here, what you hope will come from the discussion that we're having today. Anything at all that you would like to offer, I would ask that you please do that. And please feel comfortable. This is a conversation. That's what this is, a conversation. It's not intended to be anything else. It's for us, particularly for me as the president, to listen to you and continue to make the efforts that we need to make to accomplish basically what I described just a few minutes ago. So our first student is sitting where? Yes.
My name is Andy Santos, and I'm here today because I feel like there's a serious issue that needs more attention, and I feel like there's a way of acknowledging the problem and coming up with a solution.
You currently enrolled at Luzerne County Community College. You've been there for a period of time, right? So
Yes.
you know about what the college offers?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Yes.
My name is Jordani Kowinko. I graduated last month with my associate's degree in computer information systems. Since I started LCC, I feel like diversity is what we all have in there, because from friends, students, professors, everything just speaks diversity. So that's something that LCC taught me all the way through my career. It will always be with me.
Thank you. Congratulations on your tenure. You're great. Wonderful. Next. Students?
I'm Wanda Sanchez. I attended LCC for about a year. I'm originally from New York, and I'm just here to learn more about the university, about Pennsylvania, I come from an area that's very diverse, Queens, New York. We have everything, and just coming here, I just want to feel comfortable about Pennsylvania and just learn more about the university. And yeah, that's why I'm just to educate myself more.
Wonderful. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
Amy. I graduated class of 2018, and I'm just here to take part in the discussion.
Wonderful. An alumnus of the college, 2018?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Yes.
Teresa Yamua. I was invited by Ms. Ken to join the discussion, and it's all about diversity. She wanted me to be part of it. I'm a student here, and particularly in Hazleton. I haven't been to the main campus though, but I usually attend my classes here.
Wonderful. All right. And now, if we can have our members who are joining us from the community. If you could introduce yourself, please. We'll start. Who wants to start? Yes, sir.
My name is Nick Zullo. I'm an ESL adjunct faculty member here at Hazleton campus, and I also teach English language development at Luzerne High School.
Okay.
Hi, Mary Romer. I'm the president of the Greater Hazleton Chamber of Commerce, a partner with LCC, so glad to be here, and especially glad to hear the student perspective and input.
Sure.
Sure. My name is Amir Arroyo. I have an office here, I have a Latino newspaper, and I'm proud of LCCC, what it's doing in Hazleton community particularly, because we see diversity. We see young population that will be serving the entire area, and that's the future of this area. Thank you for being here. Thank you to support LCCC and to support Mr. Tumblr. Thank you.
My name is Glenis Vasquez. I am Amy's mother. I was part of the ESL program about 2 years ago, and I'm here to learn about the LCC, what I'm going to do after the COVID-19 situation, to be part of the community and inform the community, because there's a lot of young people who graduate this year and wants to attend to the college.
Yes.
I'm Maria Giovanetti. This is I just completed my second semester teaching here. I started in higher ed in Jersey City in 1989. My entire career has evolved around diversity, second language students, directed the ESL program at St. Peter's University. I'm also a journalist, and I've brought packages of articles that explain a little bit about our diversity here in Hazleton and our problems with diversity. So hopefully they'll come in soon. I was also a candidate for mayor of Hazleton in the last election.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ana Garcia. I work for CEO here in Hazleton, but I also am an alumni from Luzerne Community College, and I owe my experience. I began with taking non-credit classes after a long time at school, and then I worked my way up until I completed my associates, and I think it was the basis of my education. I eventually got my master's, and I'm very proud of the education I got from Luzerne Community College. And also, since my experience was so positive, and because of everything that's going on in the country right now, this issue of diversity and racism and all that, I think that the model, your college, the college will be a model for other institutions in terms of diversity. And I want to learn more about what type of changes and what initiatives the college is taking in the light of everything that's going on.
Thank you. I would now like to turn to my colleagues who have joined us as well here today, so that they can have an opportunity to introduce themselves. And we'll start with you there.
Hi everyone, I'm Ann Saxton, and I'm the diversity coordinator for the college. And I'm just really happy to be here to hear the student perspective, hear the community members, and you know what's happening here in Hazleton. And hopefully we can all work together to continue to make a change. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Reyes. I'm Vice President of Enrollment Management and Student Affairs here at Luzerne County Community College. Glad to be here. So excited, and I know most of the people and the students who are here in the room, and so just glad to know how successful you're being or have been as part of Luzerne County Community College. Thank you for being here. We really just want to hear from you. Help us to guide our steps as we continue to value diversity and growing diversity at Luzerne County Community College.
I think we accidentally muted, so we can't hear you here. It's just,
You haven't heard anything?
yeah, just the last like couple minutes.
All right, you good?
We're good.
Okay. So, this is where our listening comes in. And I would like, if you would, and as I said, this is a conversation. I didn't come here with a prepared agenda. I would never, respectfully, I didn't want to have a list of what I think is important to learn. I have to really rely on you to talk about what you believe are the challenges and what we can do at Luzerne County Community College. I'm talking about across the board. I'm talking about the coursework in terms of maybe curriculum infusion with respect to some diversity issues. Talking about the environment, you know, the clubs, the activities that we offer. The sense of welcome when you arrive in our offices, across our campus, and at our centers here in Hazleton and other places. That's what we want to hear about. It's really constructive suggestions. Please do not hesitate to say there's something wrong here, there's something that should be improved, there's something that we can really make some changes that would make our students in our community, impact our community on what we can do better. So, you know, I teach a course, and I'm so grateful to the first person who ventures out and says, this is what I think, you know, because that usually gets the ball rolling and discussion usually evolves from there. So I'm going to turn to you now in a very open dialogue, as I mentioned, to speak.
I feel, since we're talking about racism and equality, I feel like racism is not something you're born with. I think it's something is taught at home or, you know, with your culture. And I feel that, you know, there's not a lot of talk in elementary and high school about racism. Even though they see it all the time, they don't speak about it. And I feel like if the college, you know, have more, not classes, maybe get-togethers or discussion about racism, so maybe those students that experience that at home, you know, can learn something from us minorities, maybe, you know, like, and maybe all their life, all they're taught is to hate, and maybe when they come to school and they're taught to love and to understand other people and other people's culture, you know, that might help the community a little more.
I think you really captured, you know, the essence of the issue. And, you know, that's why we're here today. This is a relationship between what we do at a college and how we impact the community. And certainly, yes, resentment, suspicion, leading to prejudice is something that is learned. And really the impact, it is not sufficient to say that we're doing it in here or we're doing it in another place or another time. It really has to do with a comprehensive approach to how we might impact the community in a positive way. And I think the community college, the responsibility of the community college, I think is even greater than I would consider my colleagues in other institutions, because we are the community. And we have this obligation really to look at where we live and how we can change on our block, down the street, in our schools, in our restaurants, wherever we are, to promote the idea of inclusion. Inclusion. It's a great word. It's a great word, and sometimes people have such a difficulty just fulfilling that concept of including everyone and respecting everyone. So that's a great way, I think, to start this conversation. How can we kind of address that from a community perspective and bring more people into the conversation? Yes.
Well, just, adding to what the young lady just said, one way that I think would be effective would be to create one credit course called something like diversity or study of cultures. People, from my experience of almost 40 years as a teacher, race is one of those taboo subjects, and I think it's that way because students, people in general, do not feel safe discussing race. They feel that if they bring up the topic, they will be attacked in some way or another. So if an institution can create a safe space with parameters, with rules, that would mean that nobody would disparage anyone else, that it would be a civil, academic conversation. But I know we don't have a lot of room in our curriculum for extras. One credit, I think we could start. I wonder what you think.
Well, my first reaction to that is it certainly makes a great deal of sense. If you're going to address it from an educational perspective, then giving it the credence, of course, certainly enables us to focus on this is important and communicate to our students. This is very important for you to learn. I think you mentioned, I think touched on something that's so important. There are subjects that are very difficult for people to open up and feel comfortable in discussing. And certainly in our world that we live in today, in the last several years, it seems as though there is more polarization on a number of issues. But this one is really about, this is about America living up to its ideals. This is about America making sure, when I say America, I'm talking about right here at home. You don't have to worry about the rest of the country. But right here at home, making that commitment that a one credit course, that's something that our curriculum, our faculty can look at, to review, and see if there's a way to accomplish that and offer that course. How could one be against it? As long as we could figure out how we could practically put that into the curriculum. Yes?
I just wanted to piggyback on what she was saying. I took a course last semester in sociology, and I'm like, why am I taking this? I'm trying to become a nurse. And Mrs. Murphy, the professor, she told us how a lot of people are, it's not a lot of people are racist, it's just that when some people come into their community, it's like they're scared of that culture. Maybe what she was saying, maybe that one course where we could speak about different culture in our communities, and
Yes.
when they learn about it, then I could be afraid of different types of people.
And maybe, as you're describing it, bring it home.
Yes.
Talk about our community, because sometimes we talk in very expansive ways, but we don't bring it home. Now, I want to acknowledge, though, just so we do have diversity, inclusion in our FYE course. We have it in some of our social science courses. So there are important elements of this in other courses, but your idea about dedicating a one credit course to that specific is something that we should consider. And you might want to elaborate on that, I'm not sure, but just as a...
I agree. I think that would be fantastic. And as you said, there's not a lot of room in the curriculum, but I think that this is really important. And I think it would be something we could bring to, academic affairs. And as President Leary said, in first year experience and some other courses, they do try to infuse diversity education within those courses. But I think a very focused one credit course would be fantastic. Because there's a lot of history to learn too, in terms of civil rights and understanding.
Yes.
Alright, so I think that's a great idea, as you mentioned earlier. But another thing we can do, I was thinking about a club that focuses on diversity, and then we can have students as officers in it, and then they can try to do events every month to try to focus on diversity and make people welcome.
So a student group.
A club, yes. A student group where students can sign up and then focus on diversity as their goal throughout the year.
That's fantastic.
Yes. Yes.
So one of the pieces, and I'm sure, counterpart could attest to this as well, that we discovered it was one of those pieces that we always knew about, the language barrier, particularly in our community. And when you're faced with a crisis and the ability and the need to be able to communicate in both languages and environments where people are comfortable in. And so in some ways, the COVID created some linkages and some abilities to do that. So a class, if the college would create that and offer that, and to also encourage different organizations, like the Chamber has a board of directors, our economic development has a board of directors, so almost like to offer the same thing, maybe in a smaller format or whatever, but in the community, I think would be very helpful. And that I think in some ways, like I said, we've maybe moved a little bit further down the path and understanding that and that whatever. I think we've had more programs probably in the last 3 months that we've done, done it in English to find the folks to be able to do it in Spanish as well, so that there's a comfort level.
So you're basically suggesting that it's not only the students in our college, but we need to expand it to our community so that the college is having a positive impact on that.
Correct, and because Luzerne, especially at the Hazleton Center, has always been probably the leading, most diverse group in our community, organized group, and that I think that there's a lot to be learned from the students and their openness to teach or to create an opportunity to blend those two things.
Yeah. To add to what we have previously spoken about the diversity thing, in my own opinion, I think back in my country, school give scholarship to students and they go abroad and then they learn about colleges. So I think if you incorporate that too, it's going to be beneficial to some of us who want to learn more about different cultures outside the country.
International study, travel.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have I don't know how many complaints or issues have to deal with in the recent past. Students that might have complained or felt uncomfortable with the interaction with the teacher, with the staff of the college. Is there a plan in place for that kind of conflict resolution or mediation?
Yes. We have an outlined policy and procedures to address that issue, and it really comes down to if a student feels that he or she is being adversely affected by the delivery of a course or along those lines or anything that we're talking about today. There is an opportunity for that student. There's a grievance procedure, there's a process, and we obviously take that responsibility very seriously. We will take that information, we will make sure that we address it, and we will make sure that the student understands what the outcome of that discussion and the end result was. Yes?
Yes, because one of the issues, I'm generalizing now, what's going on now is that in many states is that those authority figures are not necessarily doing what's just. They're acting out of racism.
Yes.
And the students, especially the very young ones, they are very vulnerable and they are looking and taking very serious in the word of teachers have a great value and will affect them either positively or negatively. So that's.
And you touch on a subject that had a conversation the other day about professional development on these issues. And I really feel that I'm going to have a conversation with our leaders at the college and our faculty, and I'm going to talk about the concept of some professional development, because we all need, including myself, we need to have greater awareness and sensitivity to some of the issues that come up. And I think we can do that, we can accomplish that in a very constructive way with some type of professional development, so that more individuals are aware of what the issues are. Because we all get caught up sometimes in as we described it here today, in in our experience and in our history, but there's also another perspective that we need to learn, and we really need to adapt to having that openness, if you will. I need to learn more, and that's across the board. That starts with our board of trustees, it goes through our faculty, our staff, administration, our leadership, that we need to make sure that we have the type of information and knowledge about the issues that we are involved in today and moving forward. And I'm a strong student of history, but I think the time right now in our history, the time is now to begin to make the kinds of differences that we need to do. Yes.
Thank you. When I see young students here, I see the future of Hazleton, not only Hazleton, the entire nation, the United States. We will see, and I hope in the future, some of these diverse students, most of those Latino, can reach and be elected as a public officials. Because their mind, here, they have a different view of the entire world. With all the respect, people of my age, they grew up with a pattern inside the brain, and it's too hard to see different colors, different language, different nationalities. So we want, and the nation is changing, and the march that we had Hazleton 2 weeks ago, it woke up me and opened a window that Hazleton has a different future. But if we go back in the time, we used to have here Irish, Germans, Slovak, Italians, and all living in this town. And all those nice people, because there are nice people, they can't understand that she's Latina, Dominican, she's Colombian, or he is from Peru. They don't. But I think the time is when the change are starting. And as Hazleton was in the bad situation years ago, we will be in a good situation. We have to be the example for the rest of the country and the world. And you are the future of the country. You, please. And that is what I like when I see LCCC open the doors to different people. And I would like to see here the state representatives, congressmen, senators, the mayor, the chief of police. We have to discuss, we have to open our heart, and we have to discuss clearly everyone what they think about, no my party, no my ideas. It's the future of this place, this city, the future of this county, the state, and the world, the nation, sorry, and the world. But LCCC, I think, has a big challenge to open a round table where we can discuss openly racism, segregations, Black Lives Matter, Latino, undocumented, illegal, because we are human beings and we have to have a voice in a table. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very eloquently expressed. If you think about this idea, if you learn English and economics and science and math, and you don't learn how to respect the dignity of every individual that you come across, what has your education provided for you? Really? And in a sense, you mentioned the younger generation. Many of the people that are sitting here in front of me today, they are the future. They can make the changes. What I found about the younger generation is they are so much more open-minded to change. They are more inclusive than my generation. That you have the opportunity, and what was just touched on, you have almost an inherent obligation to register to vote, to participate, and to think about public service as a possibility. To think about how you could be the leaders to change and make progress moving forward. That is something that you should really consider, and as part of your consideration for your futures. Other thoughts? Yes.
And this also follows the thread This was demonstrated in the last census in a very harsh way, in that we have only 5% college-educated students in Hazleton. Now that doesn't mean that we didn't produce a whole lot more, but only 5% stayed. And this is contrasted with a national number of 30%. This also means that when groups like Can Do, or maybe something that Mary's doing at the chamber, when they look at our demographics, they see that one number, and we find ourselves in a vicious circle, because if we want to attract professional jobs to Hazleton, that 5% looks very bad. I think that one initiative that the college could look at, that I think is very important, is what are the sustainable 21st century jobs? And I'm talking about a Green New Deal, really, because even if you want to be a roofer or a plumber in this century, in maybe 10 years, we're going to be looking at green solar roofs. And you can't just be an ordinary roofer to install a green solar roof. So that, you know, I do think that things start here, and my question is, and it's a real tough one, how do we break out of that vicious circle of our best and brightest going away because they want to make a decent living? Our salaries are much lower than in other parts of the country. So leaders, we have an abundance, talent, intelligence, but how do we get them to stay?
That is a very, very challenging question.
It is, but I think if we don't solve that, we're not going to make the kind of long-term progress to be a sustainable 21st century city and county and area and all of that. And I believe a lot of it can start right now.
Well, I think one of the most important conditions to even begin to address that is for us to embrace our diversity. Understand that we have this great opportunity to retain our young people across the board in so many important professions, and also to live in our community. So we have to find a way collectively to improve the opportunities, which is challenging. Make sure that we do have the kinds of positions available, professional opportunities that people aspire to do. And I think we need to find a way. The chamber, I think, is an example of promoting the message that we want people to stay here right here at home, and that we're working on, as you're describing it, finding the opportunities for them to want to stay here. It's a very, I don't have the wisdom to know the answer to that particular issue, but I know that when communities are together and they're working towards common goals, and there's an inclusiveness with those communities across the board, across America, they grow better than communities that don't understand how important that concept is.
I have one last thing to say. When I first started coming to the school, I was very happy and impressed to see all the programs you guys do offer for people that don't know English. There's a couple of classes I can take upstairs, there's AB classes, and I feel like those classes are the steps that we need to have for these kids to be able to join college one day. And I'm very proud that LCC has those programs. And I'm very impressed because I come from New York, where there's a lot of those programs, and a lot of community colleges don't offer that in New York. So I'm very proud of this school for that.
Thank you. I wanted to touch on something and about kind of getting started thinking about this. You mentioned the GED program. And I had this opportunity when I visit, whether it's here at Hazleton or Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, walking into classrooms with individuals who, for a variety of reasons, most of which is not academic, they left high school, they left school. They're coming back now, and they're pursuing their graduate equivalency diploma. And I always say to those individuals, do you know, of all the classrooms that I visit, how much courage it takes, how much commitment it takes to do that at 25, 30, 35 years of age, to come back and say, I want to get my high school diploma, I want to get on the track, I want to learn more, I want to, at some point in time, I want to go to college. So it kind of touches back on what the question about the community. It's not necessarily about only necessarily about great sustaining professions, but it's also about taking those many instances who have been left behind and bringing them along and encouraging them so that we have a broader base of people in our community who feel good about themselves. I'm a firm believer, and I'm not a psychologist, okay, by any stretch, but I'm a firm believer that really comes down to if you encourage someone, if you give them the opportunity, the means, most people will react, they will respond positively to that, and it'll help change their lives. And that's, whenever we talk about diversity, we're talking about how we bring people together. That's basically it. I know that's simple, but we need to work on that as a college, and we need to work on that as a community. Yes?
So, a couple of people that I know that work in Amazon and I don't know, other travelers here, they offer programs where they would, they could work and they also get paid to come to school.
Yep.
Maybe we could talk to the faculty, the companies around here, to open up those programs for more people so more people could attend school and better their life,
Yes.
Amazon, I know, has a great program, but a lot of people don't know about it. Maybe if we educate and inform people about this program, more people would join.
And that's something that you're suggesting. That is incumbent upon us as a college. We have agreements, but we need to expand those relationships.
Yeah.
Because I look at it from the perspective, if you want to look at this from an industry standpoint, you're going to retain those individuals if you have those type of tuition send programs while they go to college. You're going to be able, because they're going to feel a sense of, at least a sense of obligation in the sense that, boy, you're treating me well, you're supporting me to get to my goal. I'm going to stick with you until I make a decision on what I want to do, if I want to change my mind. That's a very good point. Those kinds of relationships are important. Yes?
Another suggestion that I want to do is, normally the student keep for example, if a student belongs to Hazleton, they keep in Hazleton most of the time. If a student belongs to Nantico, they keep in Nantico most of the time. So one way to involve one another, because I know that in Nantico, the college has many activities when they involve all the students. But most of the time, Hazleton students or other students, other locations, do not participate in every activity.
Yes.
So I think if there are ways to involve a student from one location to another location, that could be great. And one point that I want to bring is the situation with the transportation.
Yes.
There's a student here in Hazleton that maybe wants to take some class, but sometimes they can drive to Nantico, sometimes they doesn't have cars, sometimes it's difficult. And they just get the class that are here in Hazleton, and that's why sometimes they don't involve in Nantico campus in other activities because they can go every time to Nantico. And that's I think that college can help. If the college has any kind of transportation for a student to get classes in Nantico.
And we've worked on that initiative on public transportation. We're not going to give up. It hasn't been fulfilled at this point. Roseanne, you might want to just touch on that, please.
Yes, the college has been involved formally in the last 2 to 3 years, very actively with other organizations and industry that are also employing people from the Hazleton and requires a kind of transportation between the Nanticoke, Wilkes-Barre, and Hazleton locations. So that committee, in partnership with LCTA and the Hazleton Transportation Authority, have been on the table trying to figure out a way to not only make it happen, but also find alternative funding to create that possibility. And though we got very close, I want to say last year around this time, we were very close to having a commitment from those industries and saying we will pledge financial support to make that happen. Unfortunately, it didn't go all the way. We will resume those conversations. I know there's been some change in leadership in the Transportation Authority, but I know for a fact that there is a group of people who are very dedicated in finding a way to make that happen. And they asked us, the only institution of higher ed, to be at the table in making that plan happen.
Thank you. And the first part of your suggestion with respect to, I think you're talking about more student engagement here at the Hazleton Center. We need to continue to find ways and solicit our student interest, offer more of those opportunities that we offer on the main campus as well. And I see that particularly, we learned a lot the last few months about technology. There's a way to accomplish that even in terms of connections around with the other centers as well as Hazleton and the main campus. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm going to come back. No problem. I missed you.
Rosanna, as far as the transportation, just an alternative that we seem to have a lot more of is the van service. So I know that the county and all of that, but there might be some more flexibility and even some pricing on some of the local vans, and be happy to share that.
I just want to touch on what Maria said about having young professionals in the area, as well as what you said about building relationships. I think in order to do that, you have to start those relationships early, especially in high school. Because a lot of since I teach at the Hazleton High School here, Luzerne does a great job coming in multiple times a year to introduce themselves to specifically the ESL students there. Because a lot of times, you know, these students are, sad to say, sometimes they're left behind, especially because of the language barrier. And colleges from all around the area, they always come in, but I think what's great about Luzerne, what I usually always tell my students is, Luzerne offers such great language support to the students. A lot of universities, they don't have an ESL program to build up that language, and the classes will be tough. Like the ESL program here, it does require the students to take extra credits, but they love it, you know, and it's important for these students to know that, you know, while every college offers great programs, Luzerne is very unique because of the language support they offer.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very proud of that because we really believe we're helping so many people in the community get over that, you know, that barrier that is so difficult at times to get into college. And thank you for those words. Other thoughts? This has been very good. We're getting a lot of great ideas. Thank you for that. Yes.
So today, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of DACA, and I just wanted to know.
That's wonderful news. I didn't know that.
As an undocumented student myself, I just wanted to know what is this college going to do to support students at Lake? Because I know a couple people who are planning to come here, but it's like they don't know where to go.
Call our Vice President and Vice President Reyes to hear the question.
Please repeat that. I was writing what you just said. That's great.
I asked, what is LCCC going to do to keep supporting DACA and undocumented students?
Thank you. That's a great question. That is such a personal issue for myself and for many of us internally, because we recognize many times these are taxpayer students within their community who are vested in the success, who are paying taxes and filling out taxes, and unfortunately we're not able to offer them some of the benefits that legal residents have. One of the main things that we will continue to do, which we have been doing, is maintain the state higher education communication focused on that. Anytime we have an opportunity to speak to our elected officials or the Commission of Higher Education, which is the organization that guides and brings all of our institutions, the 14 community colleges in the state together, we continuously keep this on the table as an issue that is impacting our students, primarily for one main reason, and that is we want to be able to keep the tuition to be at the same rate as an in-county rate. We're not necessarily talking about financial aid, even though that will be a phenomenal national agenda. And as you know, financial aid is a national system. Therefore, it needs to come from Washington. Anything that would change how financial aid is awarded. And obviously, DACA is not considered a population that can receive financial aid. But we believe that the in-county rate is so important for our students who are in that designation. Because at the very least, it allows them to make education an affordable option and not treat it as an international population. So we will continue that conversation. I've said that to many students, and Amy, I know you and I have had this conversation, that it's more about awareness and making our elected officials understand that it is not for illegal immigrants, it is for students who have a legal right to be here and to receive that support. I think it's merited. So we will keep being an advocate for our population here at DACA. We'll continue to make this a topic on our table. Internally, we have designation of scholarships to support our students that are even independent of legal status, to make sure that our students, and I know some of you here might have already benefited from that, receive scholarships, and we make it a point to communicate that option to our DACA students so that they can tap into those funds. And we'll keep doing that and continue to add on that as well.
Thank you. There is no, from where we sit, there is no distinction that should be made between the tuition rate among students in terms of that issue. And so we're going to continue to pursue that change, because that is something we talked to federal officials, we talked to state officials. We had a conference call with senators from Pennsylvania last week, and specifically that was one of the items on our agenda to change that, so that students are not burdened by higher tuition. Yes.
Just for education of the group here. So a student that would have to pay not a county rate, they pay out of county rate?
Yes, yes. Which is a real financial burden. Did you have any follow-up to that? Okay, I'm just wondering. I try to read facial expressions. Sometimes I strike out, but I wonder if everything else. Yes. Yes.
I guess this is one of those tough conversations that people want to shy away from. Mary, you're a longtime resident, maybe you can comment on this too. Maybe you even disagree with me, I don't know. Some people in Hazleton do. But I see a lot of systemic racism here. I really saw it. I'm a homegrown Hazletonian who went away to New York for 20 years for education and work. We've had recently during the COVID crisis a lot of social media banter, chatter that has been anti-Latino, blaming. We had the highest per capita zip code rate of infections in the state. It was, for me reading it, I am a social media person, for me reading it, it was chilling, to say the least. Get these people out of here, I don't want these people here. I call it out when I see it, which has often been frankly dangerous to me. I have been threatened numerous times, even when I speak Spanish to help immigrants in stores. I do Spanish was one of my majors, and I'm told to shut the F up and not speak Spanish. This has happened to me in my own backyard when I've spoken Spanish and in stores when I try to help fellow human beings who need a hand. At the very core of our making diversity this great flower, getting it into full bloom, we have to address the systemic racism that has poisoned this city ever since I was a conscious person, let's say 10 years old. I've seen it. Anti-Black, it was mostly back in those days. And certainly with our population now being about 70% Latino, and also with Spanish being the most spoken language in Hazleton, I think we're a tinderbox. And I don't know what's going to happen coming up for the election. I think there is clear and present danger to this community. So my question is, and my answer, what I do personally is when I see systemic racism, I call it out, sometimes not too politely. But as long as it's here, even if it's now in a minority population, let's say 30% who are not Latino, it's very problematic, and I do believe it's dangerous. We're seeing how police react in situations with minority individuals. I'm not demonizing our police.
I think what you're touching on is something that I'm not sure, but I think I said it in the beginning. That whenever you're in a crisis situation, that creates an opportunity to change. And there can be no denying that there is, across the board, racism exists. And I'm always been a firm believer that it really rests on education. Education is the only initiative that will change that, the direction. But we do have to be more, I think we have to be, as a group, as a society, as individual citizens, we have to be willing to step up and comment when we find that there is injustice, that there are situations that need to be addressed. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but Martin Luther King Jr. said that people's lives begin to end when they stop talking, stop speaking about things that matter, and this matters. And we are in a situation right now, at least I think some of the dialogue that's going on in our world right now, there's a lot of constructive recommendations that are being made, and I think we have to learn from our history. Our history suggests that every time we've gone through these crises, sometimes we learn very well and apply them, and sometimes we don't. We cannot miss this opportunity. We have to learn from what's happening right now, and we have to, community by community, I think we have to change and educate people more about the respect that we should have across the board for all of our citizens. That is incumbent upon educational institutions, chambers, industry, businesses. That's across the board. That's about making sure that we recognize where we're at and what we need to do. Yes.
Going back to what you just said, and I think one of our students said about that racism is a learned behavior. And I go back, this begins in the home, with the family, and how do we break that cycle of racism, in our elementary schools, and I think with parental education. I don't know what the answer is. I'm asking that question. What would anyone suggest? How do we break that cycle in the home?
So I feel like a big part of it has to do with how the education that those people are receiving and the training. Because I can give personal account on the things that have been said to me by school officials and admissions counselors and people who work at schools. And I try to give them the benefit of the doubt because maybe they don't know better, because maybe they haven't dealt with certain types of situations. But I feel like in order for us to start creating, or in order for the college to start creating that type of change, I feel like there should be serious, in-depth, specific conversations about diversity. Because it's one thing for me to be here and just, oh, hey, diversity, we need to talk about it. But what about diversity? And that includes many communities. That includes the undocumented people, the LGBTQ community, people of color in general, and maybe more that I don't even have in my head right now. But I feel like the right type of training will help ease the differences a little bit.
I applaud you for saying that. I think that is very true. Maria, I'm not native to the area. I moved to the area, but I've been here originally, grew up, and born and raised in New Jersey.
I said you were here a long time.
Yeah, but I have been here a long time now. I think one of the things about community building and community change is it's a slow process. It truly is a slow process. I had the opportunity pre-COVID, I guess that's the way, right? We're in the term 2020. It was probably early in the year for a group that had focused and was working on a documentary about our community because of the fact that we are a small city that has a large, diverse population that happened in a relatively short period of time, and so we can easily see the strains. They had been here probably about 5 years ago, and it was interesting to have dialogue off camera with the producer who had seen from somebody who was here, left, came back, some of the forward progress that we had made, that there were more diverse looking board of trustees or mixers and events from the chamber standpoint. And he said, no, I think that, you know, you're too deep in the woods, you know, to see the forest for the trees, as the saying goes. I think, and one of my concerns is, just like it happened in the last election cycle, we're going to be put under a microscope. And that microscope, people come in with an agenda. And their agendas can be on either side or more divisive than pulling together. And so to stay focused on building community with the people that live in our area and continuing to do that. So I think that we have come further than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. We always need to keep it on the agenda and on the table and seek forums like this to find new and different ways for the honest dialogue. Another thing I've personally learned is, yes, you can point it out to individuals or halt it when you're in a position to do that. But 100, like winning over 100% isn't, and that in the creating events and spaces that are safe and inclusive and diverse is the best way I found to have it happen maybe a little bit more naturally. So to have an opportunity to speak with some of your students about their experiences, maybe not like calling out specific institutions or organizations where they've been impacted with some community leaders, might be a great forum that the college has, again, the ability to pull those and would commit the chamber to assisting with that. Because I think, you know, I give you credit for, you know, trying to give the other side the benefit of the doubt, and maybe that wasn't their intention. I know I've learned a lot in this tumultuous period of time, things that I never meant to be as racist or a questionable comment and things like that I've learned, and I think that we all continue to, you know, need to do that kind of learning and a heightened sensitivity to it. So.
Mary, may I ask you a question? I didn't quite understand. When you said groups come in at the election time with agendas.
Sure, the national media has come into our community with very specific storylines, and they find the individuals who will fit the narrative and the storyline that they have. I'm not saying that we don't have racism in this community. Quite frankly, I don't think there's a community in the United States that doesn't have it to some degree. And I think the other elements that either inflame it or make it difficult, you know, varying degrees. Yes, we do have it here. But I also think that we have made strides towards being a more welcoming and diverse community, but we could always continue to improve.
Well, just getting back to the 2016 election, we definitely had Latino voter suppression at 2 precincts. Jim Crow type Latino voter suppression. And nothing was ever investigated, nothing was done about it. And this was a city that went to Trump by a few hundred votes. I think the racism here is pandemic.
Let me come back to our students. I'm not sure, does anybody have the time, because we did, I know people probably promised 1:33. Promised an hour. Okay, I want to come back to our students. What would you like for me to do, for us to do, for the college to do, leaving here today? Whether that in your general way or some specific, we got some good suggestions. We have received some good suggestions that we will work on. You know, the idea of several ideas that were suggested. And yes.
One thing that I would love now that they're talking about vote, I registered as an independent, so I went, and I'm like, oh, you can't vote, you're not either Republican or Democrat, you know, that happened to me. And then I had a few friends, I'm like, oh, you have to go and vote. And then they went, they wouldn't even register, so maybe just talking it up about registering, and then how it works, because a lot of Spanish people, minority, are like, oh, our votes don't matter, look how our current president won and he won the popular vote, but they don't understand
The civic portion
exactly. Or how it works that, okay, so he didn't win the popular vote, but he won another vote, and that's why you have to vote for your senate, that's why you have to vote for your mayors, and that's why you have to vote for the people that represent you. So maybe just talking it up and just having them know that they have to register by a certain time to vote for November.
I think it would be helpful if across the board, at the main campus and all of our dedicated centers, if we, between now, start of semester, fall semester, through the period of time when there is a deadline, we set up areas where we can, in a very non-partisan way, nothing to do with it, non-partisan way, where we can register young people to vote, educate them as to any questions that they have about the process and what they need to do. I think that would be a great contribution that we could make to allow everyone who's so inclined to register to vote. So let me say, as an outcome of that, we'll make a commitment to setting that up in a very, as I'm emphasizing, it's a nonpartisan way. It's just to really
civic education.
Your civic duty and some information. What else from the students would you like for us to do? Yes.
So this previous semester, we held a meeting for the NAACP, and then we were talking about diversity, and then we had diverse opinions and stuff. When it comes to the student body, we all agree that we have a ton of diversity, one of the most diverse campuses around this area. But when we focus on staff, faculty and staff, we all kind of agree that there's definitely room for improvement in that area. So a little bit more diversity when it comes to.
Thank you. Thank you. That great suggestion, because that has to do with kind of what we touched on, at least with professional development along these lines, because we can all improve and we can make it a better place, a better environment. Anyone else? Yes.
I have one. I'm so sorry, guys. I have so much to say. With like the program that the school offers, I hear from a couple of students how we were talking about how we should start registering for the nursing program. And they mentioned, a few of them, how, don't even worry about that, you just apply out after 2 years, because they mostly only accept, 2 or 3 Spanish compared to like the rest being white. And I don't know what it goes to the program, but maybe just having like somewhere where we could like look up, like, no, that's not true,
Yeah.
just so they don't feel like, we have to like, after 2 years, we just gotta get out of this, so
I'm sorry to hear that. If there's ever anything along those lines, it is selection. It's based on the limit.
Yeah.
We have the clinicals, as you know, in the hospitals. But we select the most qualified students on the basis of standards. So, and that's the only way we can do it to be fair across the board. But that perception might be out there, and that's what we should address. We should address it. Anything else for our students? Well, I believe, and I know that I'm sitting here, so maybe my thought is different than yours, but I think this has been a most productive hour of time. And I know, as I pointed out to you in the beginning, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of a series, and taking your suggestions, your ideas, and furthering the discussion. And it's not a situation where sometimes in education we deal with this. We'll put this on the agenda, we'll study it for a couple of years, we'll see what we can come up with. This, as I said in the beginning, this is our chance. This is our opportunity to make sure that we make the kind of changes that we need to make, that we improve upon what we do well, and that we address anything that we're not doing well to make it better. And most importantly, number one, for our students, and then the community who we serve. I want to thank you for coming out today. I really appreciate your time to come here and offer your suggestions. And I wish you, for those of you who are here at the college, I wish you the very best. For those of you who are not, and the students who are moving on, you who are graduating, wish you the very best. Just remember one thing. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, Luzerne County Community College is always your home. Always be back.